Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Crowdcast book launch, birthday launch for Heather Bell Adams with Good Luck Stone. I got to read this before it was published, and I love my job because of that. This book, it's amazing. You never really hear the point of view of a woman who has served over in the war. And when you hear about the World War II people, it's usually what happened in Germany and England. And sometimes Japan too, but the South Pacific was horrible, in the Philippines during World War II. And this nurse was a nurse in World War II. And it goes back and forth 70 years ago till present day in Savannah, Georgia. Audrey Thorpe is a 90-year-old remarkable woman. You'll never forget her. And the secret she has harbored for 70 years. Aubrey was once a young nurse stationed in the Philippines when the Japanese invaded and is now a 90-year-old wealthy widow and a prominent figure in Savannah society. When her granddaughter insists that she needs help in her daily life, she finally relents to having an assistant come and help. Laurel turns out to be her lifesaver in more ways than one, and for the first time in 70 years, Aubrey feels she has finally found a friend again. The Good Luck Stone is an amazing story of love, sacrifice, friendship, and with enough suspense to keep you turning pages long past your bedtime. So welcome, Heather Bell. How are you?
Good. How are y'all doing? Thanks, everybody, for being here.
We're so excited to be here. So it's your birthday. We all want to sing. No, we can't do that. So when did you actually start writing this book?
I started writing this book, I guess it was about 2 years ago. My son, as many of you know, does a lot. He golfs a lot, competes in a lot of tournaments. And we were at the World Championship in Pinehurst 2 summers ago. It was really hot. It was in July. And I knew I wanted to write a story that had a World War II timeline to it. And I wanted it to be in the South Pacific. As you mentioned, it seems like we have so many good World War II stories that are set in Europe. And I wanted to do something just a little different. And so I was doing a lot of research that summer about World War II in the South Pacific, and specifically about nurses who served there. I wanted it to be a nurse. My mother, who we lost when I was in high school, was a nurse practitioner. So I kind of liked that idea about having a nurse in the story. And so I was reading about these nurses in the South Pacific and kind of honed in a bit on the Philippines, and read this chapter about some Army and Navy nurses who were taken prisoner. They were prisoner of war for several years, actually, in the Philippines. And I read about this kind of daring escape. So some of the nurses escaped, some by plane and then some by submarine. Right before the rest of them, over 100, were taken prisoner. And so I thought, that's the end. That's the scene that has to be in the book. Whatever comes before or after that, what if there's this group of friends, they're very close, they serve together as nurses, maybe they even make some pretty solemn promises to each other. And what if some of them escape and some are left behind and taken prisoner of war? So right there, I knew that was where the historical timeline was going to focus. And my family and I vacation in Savannah a lot. My mother-in-law, Elise, lives there now, and it's just such a beautiful place. I knew I'd always wanted to write a story set in Savannah, so that's why the present day, well, it's 2010, it's roughly present day. The math doesn't work out if, we bring her too far out. But so that's why the present day story is set in Savannah. You drive down these beautiful palm tree lined streets in Savannah with these beautiful, historic, elegant mansions, and right? Like, who lives there and what's their story and what secret might they have? So the story kind of took off from there.
The homes there are just absolutely magical. And you always look by, like, I love driving by homes when the lights are all on and I can pretend to get inside their world. And they always seem so happy, rich.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah.
I did make it. It's called A Staycay, and that was on our website page. So cheers, Heather, for your birthday.
Cheers. I have my water.
But how have you been doing through this whole staycation, or whatever you want to call it? We'll call it.
It's nice when you come visit me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get many visitors, so when you come drop off books for me to sign, it's like a highlight.
Yeah.
It would be anyway, but especially these days. And Gina Heron, my dear friend Gina Heron, who some of you have read her books probably, What's Left Between Us and Buried Beneath the Lies. Gina is up here today visiting from South Carolina, so she helped us out with the lighting and everything, got me all situated. And
show your face.
Gina. On the spot.
Aww.
Author friends. So, other than your visits to drop off books and Gina dropping by, we've just kind of stayed at home. It's good for reading and writing and doing the lawyer job from home and just kind of staying put.
And kids and school and all that.
Yeah, it's all been happening.
So we think in our heads that you are just sitting there writing.
Right.
No, how has this process been with you trying to promote a book? I mean, this is your big book launch, and it's not what we expected when we booked this back.
Right.
At Christmas.
Yeah. Even when we were talking about it in March, we thought that by the summer, surely things will be back to normal and we'll be in person. And here we are. Yeah. But it's nice to do virtual events as well, just because so many more people are able to join. Some of the names, I saw popping up as people signed in or commented. It's great to have people in far-flung geographic areas, dear friends of mine, people who have been in my life for a long time, relatives and so on, who might not have been able to join us in person at the lovely bookstore, who are able to be here today. So,
it was great to see you, like, people are popping up, like, oh, that's my teacher in the 7th grade, and this is a friend from my college roommate in California. It was really, you are such a wonderful, nice, supportive person. I see you at almost every author event. When you can make it, you're there, and to have the support for you that you give to others. I've heard so many wonderful stories about you, and you are genuinely as nice all the time. So you're very sweet. And your books come out like that. You see your personality in that. Do you find yourself when you're writing that a part of you is in them, or parts of people that you know?
Definitely. Sue is in all of them. Yes. This book is at its heart about friendship. And I thought a lot about friends I've had over the years and what it really means to be a friend, and what friends do for each other and what friends are willing to do for each other, what it means to make a promise to a friend. And of course, in this book, the promises these friends make they're made when war is on the horizon. And then how does that change, or does it, when war does arrive and everything is thrown into disarray? And so, I kind of drew on that a little bit, just this idea of friendship and lifelong bond, for sure, for this story. There's not really a character in The Good Luck Stone that is based on anybody in real life. I mean, except for you, of course. We're all of them. With Maranatha Road, there was a character, Clive Caswell, who was based a little bit on my mother's father, my grandfather, and my aunts, some of whom I think are on, recognized their dad in Clive as well, just kind of the mannerisms and his habits and general demeanor, things like that. But he has really, so far anyway, been the only character I've put in a novel that, as I say, is sort of based on a real life character. The other ones, I might take personality traits from somebody. My paternal grandmother is 99 years old, and she's not really like Audrey Thorpe, but just having that strong woman in our family, I'm sure there are some aspects of Audrey's personality that would mirror my grandmother Belle as well, and just other strong
And I
women.
bet you won't take help either, because I know you're going to be like that too. You're very strong. I love
that whole strong Southern women thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And classy with I'm with a K. So I was talking to a lady named Lois who lives in Iowa yesterday about you, and she got your book Miranda Thoreau, which I love too.
Thank you.
And when you're a new coming author, it's hard to get that book out. It's all really word of mouth. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to say people are doing grab bags, and I put yours in a lot. Every single person is hooked. So that's really good. This one I love too. It's a completely different story. Some people have one book in them. You don't. This is so different, but it's strong female characters and different time periods even, but it's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's a very different story for sure.
Yeah.
Different settings, different themes and characters.
Mhm.
I had to do a lot more research for this one.
Yeah. How was the research?
I really enjoy it. Yeah, I really enjoy researching. I had to read about nursing and about World War II and about the Philippines and all of that. It was quite a bit of research. And actually, just when I thought I was finished with the research, I had a publisher ask me to do a big rewrite. Gina probably remembers this. And I thought, well, they wanted me to add World War II portions, some additional World War II chapters. And I thought, well, I'm kind of at the end of my research. I don't know anymore about. So what do? You go get more research. So I checked out a whole other stack of books and, got back to reading and was able to flesh out some scenes and add some more. And I enjoy learning. So I like the research part of it too. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. And you did it right too. Because sometimes you get something a little bit wrong and it kind of makes the story go away, Yes. I'm not going to talk about the biggest book of the last couple of years, but there are some things in there that everybody who lives in North Carolina is like, that could happen. Why would you travel 4 hours to pick up nails?
Yes,
but it's little things like that really can make or break it. So you did a great job in that.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody there is a buy the book button on the bottom, and we can mail them out to you. And if you want, let us know. We can personalize it for you too. And at the end, we're going to let people ask questions. Not let people, but we encourage people to ask questions.
Yeah, definitely.
So 2 more minutes. So what does your day look like? I mean, you're a lawyer, you have a son, you have a life, and you write.
Yes.
No big
deal. I would say there's no typical day necessarily. Certainly the lawyer job takes up the majority of my day. So we'll put that off to the side. Most of my day is spent at doing legal work, whether it's at the office or these days at home. Mm-hmm. Some days, I might not get any writing done. Some days I'm focused on, marketing or doing podcast interviews or things like that. And then other days I'm able to take some time and work on a new story or dig into revisions for a story that's being considered and things like that. So I just really try to fit it in when I can, just throughout the day or on the weekends at night after work, just that sort of thing.
How did you start getting into this? Were you always a writer? Were you always a big reader?
I think so. Growing up, I definitely was a big reader. I just was always wanting to go to the library and books. And we didn't have a local bookstore at the time in Hendersonville, but I always went to the library. And I wrote short stories a lot when I was growing up. They weren't very good, they were mostly about my kittens, our cats. And I started a little neighborhood newspaper, which also involved a lot of stories about cats, mine and our neighbors. And then in college, I was an English major, so I did a lot of, I guess, more writing about other books then, but I also did a little bit of short fiction. And then when I started work and, Davis got a little bit older, my son Davis, I picked it back up again. So I did short stories for a long time, several years, and then decided to try a novel. So
you make it sound easy. I mean, it's hard, I think, because so many people put their heart and soul, and it's like years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes, like you said, 2 years with this one, and then to have people reject it. How do you deal with that? Because
Yeah.
A lot of people won't even put their work out there because they don't want the rejection, but
yeah. Well, that is hard, but it also, I think you just have to understand that it's part of the process. And I think, and actually with the Good Luck Stone, again, Gina and a lot of my other friends who are on here know it was a long process to find the right publisher for this book. We had a lot of, big publishers in New York and this and that who wanted me to make different changes, and went back and forth with my editor with my agent. And, I was always happy to do whatever changes people wanted. And then none of those rewrites resulted in an offer, which, you just hope that it was worth doing, right? Because it made the story stronger. So any work that you're doing and feedback that you're getting is just so helpful. I mean, for people in the industry who have all these manuscripts to read and all these, long to-do lists, it's very just flattering and kind for, to have that sort of time spent on your story and to get that feedback. And I was always just so immensely grateful for anybody who gave me any feedback or gave my agent feedback on the story. Yeah. I think you incorporate people's feedback. You try to, of course, stay true to the heart of the story that you have written. It's your story. I wouldn't have been willing to change the whole theme of the book, right? You have an idea for what you want the story to be, like the heart of the story. But otherwise, I think part of the writing process is just being willing to sort of go with the flow a little bit and work with different folks on it and get feedback. And hopefully, as it turns out, all those different people having input results in a richer story. And just, rather than, I know what's in my head, sometimes that comes out on the page and sometimes it doesn't, and to have somebody say, well, here's what I'm getting from it. And to know, like, okay, well, that, maybe I need to beef that scene up or whatever, because it's not coming out on the page as well as what I had in my head.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it's a fun process when you don't let yourself get frustrated, and you just kind of look at it all as it's all good. It's all helping the story.
Well, I'm appreciative that you went out there and put yourself out there. Somebody just commented, and I had the same thought going to my head, that J.K. Rowling had so many rejections. And then one of the publisher's daughters took the book, went upstairs to read it, and said, Dad, you have to publish this. So, it's
here we are.
Yeah. You do it and you care enough about it. So how did you come up with the whole premise of the stone, the Good Luck Stone?
That's a good question. I've always been a little bit interested in geology and gemstones. I grew up in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which has a long history of gem mining in the area. And there's a little bit of that in Maranatha Road as well with the garnets. And my dad took me and my sister to the Gem and Mineral Show, which is held every year in September. And I mean, really every year when we were growing up. And so we'd look at all these stones, and I guess it sort of came from that. And I like that different gemstones have different meanings, or, people believe that they have different meanings or different powers, if you will, or, things like that. And so from the very start, for whatever reason, I had Audrey wearing this brooch that she had gotten during the war, and kind of, it was one of her, prized possessions in a way. Not that it was fancy or worth a lot of money, but it was a prized possession for her because of what it meant in the history.
Because of that too. Like simple, but she treasures people over things. So
absolutely. Yeah.
That was a great combination. Did you learn anything about yourself when you were writing this? Like, oh, I know I'm like that. So, how like sometimes you can find out something about yourself when you're writing about somebody else?
Mm-hmm. It definitely reiterated for me how important friendship is. And, how our friends get us through life, and how, I want to be there for my friends just as they are there for me, and we get each other through good times and bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I did sort of keep coming back to that, and I literally made a list one day when I was drafting the story. I thought it would be a quick, short list, but it ended up being page after page of, what do friends do for each other, right? Mm-hmm. They defend each other. They stand up for each other. They help each other. They listen. All those sorts of things. And it really, again, I knew the story was going to be about friendship and about the bond between these friends. But that really, whenever I was in danger maybe of losing my way as I wrote the story, I kind of came back to that. I thought, what do well-meaning, good people, what are they willing to do for each other?
And so I know you like that, and you are that person. Have you had people in your family read it yet? And what do they think?
Yes. I'm embarrassed to say that they, probably read older versions that are, I don't know, I might be embarrassed by those versions now. Just because, sometimes the first effort or two is not, but yeah, no, my family's always been really, really supportive and sweet. And I'm really thankful for my writing partners, my friends, my family, all the friends who have read earlier versions, as I said. And I think I have several who have read multiple versions, including Gina, who's here today. So yeah, everybody's been really sweet about it.
And John Seeley is wonderful to work with, and he has a book that we have in the store too. He's a lot of fun and very personable, and would do anything to help you. So he's the one that does your publishing now, right?
Yes. Haywire Books, yeah. And John's book, The Edge of America, is just, I like it because it's a thriller, so it's very suspenseful, but it's also very literary and very well written. And
it is.
He has that attention to detail and careful prose, and each word is carefully chosen. So I think that's a great book.
Yeah. And it takes place in Miami. The whole time I read it, I felt like I was in Miami watching Miami Vice.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a horrible decade, but so do you meet together with writers now?
Sorry.
Do you meet with other writers consistently or like monthly?
Not really. I mean, I have a group of friends who are writers who are hugely important to me. And we, back before all this quarantine started, we would get together for a glass of wine after work or lunch. And they're just, I think I saw Denise's name on here. They're just an amazing group of women. I think you probably know some of them. And they're local, and we rely on each other just so much. And we talk about our writing, we talk about what we're reading, and we talk about our lives, all of that. And so it's not a regular process in the sense that, we meet once a month and we exchange 3 chapters or anything like that. Mm-hmm. My friend Pam and I are now trying to have a little bit more of a regular exchange of pages. Not cool. In person these days. I haven't seen any of these darling, wonderful women since March or even before. I can't remember if we were able to see each other in March. So it's been a long time. But yeah, and then I have a couple friends, another Pam. I have all these Pams who are wonderful. Pam and Perul, who I met at the Yale Writers Workshop. And we exchange writing sometime via email. And as I said, Gina is always reading, multiple versions of we read for each other as well. So yeah. So in other words, we don't call any of these like writing group. Mm-hmm. We don't call it that, but it's, friends who also happen to be writers, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so glad that you gave a voice to the women that were in the Philippines. I read one other book like that, but yours is very different, and it's really strong about friendship. How this woman had to deal with, 50 years of her life with that secret and all the trauma, and they didn't have any help for them. They were supposed to just stop talking and just get over it. And
Right.
that, to me, is the biggest tragedy of it. What did you think about that?
Yes, that's such a good point. That after all they endured, they were supposed to just be cheerful and happy and get back to normal life and just pretend as though, none of that had ever occurred.
Yeah.
And that had to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to open up to questions. Is Davis around?
Davis is on the golf course. I know that's shocking. Okay. I know you saw him earlier.
I did. I wanted him to bring something out to you.
Gina just went to get something. I don't know if they work something out amongst themselves or.
All right. There's 4 questions here. And I just want to remind everybody, you can buy the book and the little green button down there, and we'll send it out to you. There's almost 80 people on here, and some people are 2 on one thing. So that's amazing, especially for a Saturday afternoon when people are trying to venture out. So
appreciative.
You have a good support system, and we are going to sell the heck out of this book. All right, let me see the questions. So it's your birthday. Excited about your new book? That's from Greg. Heather Stepp said, "This is wonderful. Happy birthday to you." Barbara Wojcik is she writing a 3rd book? How long did it take to write this book?
Yes. So let's see. So this book, I guess, was about a couple of years in terms of research, writing, working with my agent, that sort of thing. I am working on a new book. It is set back in Western North Carolina, like Maranatha Road. So far, it does not have the historical timeline. So it's just all roughly present day. I mean, I wouldn't do it during COVID, but let's say it's 2019 or 2018. So it's very early stages on that one, but I'm excited. I'm excited to go back to Western North Carolina too. Just it's where I was born and raised, and that's where the new one will be set, hopefully. And I haven't shown it to my agent or anything. It's just I'm still trying to figure out the story myself. So,
well, we should all make a field trip out there. It's beautiful.
There you go. Yes,
yeah.
So there's beautiful. We have to get this. This is a beautiful.
For your 29th birthday.
Yeah,
29th birthday and your birthday.
Look, it says happy. Oh my goodness. Happy book birthday and birthday. And you know what? It's my favorite color. Did you know that?
Well, it matches the book.
It does match the book. Yeah.
And the plant you gave me.
Yes. Oh.
Blow. I didn't do trick.
I wish everyone was here and could have.
Yes. I got cookies to mail out, but the baker said, no, you can't do that because they'll crumble and nobody will be able to eat them. So I'm going to put something else in the book. I'm like, I never even thought of that. I said, I have packaging material. No. So there's something else going in the books.
Dropped off this morning.
Yes.
Are like this big. They're the largest cookies I've ever seen.
They do a really good job, Bella Vita. La Dolce Vita. So Bren McLean, who is another author outside of Nashville, is on here, and she's coming out with a new book too. I love her book, One Good Mama Bone. Yes. I'm in awe of your ability to write this book in 2 years in big letters. You have a job and a family. Girl, how did you manage to do this? What's your writing process and how much rewrite?
That was a good imitation of Bren that you did there.
Yeah. No, I'm just, I have a lady that comes in, girl.
I'm Bren. I'm so glad Bren is on. Yeah, One Good Mama Bone is just phenomenal. Let's see. So the question was how I wrote the book. Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth with, it's actually kind of fun for me drafting. If I got to a point in the present day storyline where I was stuck or bored, then I would go to the historical timeline and vice versa, right? You can switch back and forth. I did do a lot of rewrites. I think we talked about that earlier. I had, a variety of publishers and editors who were interested enough to give feedback and suggest rewrites. And I went from first person to third, back to first, back to third. Thankfully, Haywire liked it in third, which it was when it came to them. So didn't have to make that sort of tedious change again. But yeah, I really just try to have fun with it. And yeah. And like I said, just fit it in the margins. I mean, when Jeff and Davis are golfing, or I'm traveling, waiting for a plane somewhere, or, I used to travel a lot for work. And if I didn't have work that I needed to be doing, then I would be working on this book. I worked on this book in, a lot of different airports across the country, waiting on work flights. So yeah, kind of had fun with it.
So here's another question from Devin. My stepfather was in Asia, near the Philippines during World War II, and he never talked about it. But as he got older with dementia, he would just scream, and it was like vivid to him. And it was so sad that, he was almost 90 and he had all those secrets in him. So I can't even imagine. And what Devin is saying, my uncle was a survivor of the Death March in Bataan in the Philippines during World War II. I know his life was never the same when he got home, but he made a life for himself and raised a family. I don't know how people get over that. Some people can't deal with like a hangnail, and these people went through hell, and you really represent it well. And I think because that generation didn't talk about things because they were told not to, you're getting their families to know them better, and you have more of empathy for them, don't you think?
Yes, I think that, I hope so anyway. Yeah, I hope so. And wow. As we sit here in our comfortable homes these days, we can't really even imagine what that had to have been like, right? Yeah.
I was thinking somebody was complaining to me about being stuck home for 2 months. And I said, you know what? And I didn't mean to belittle them, because it's hard and you never know what you're going to be doing tomorrow or next week or whatever. But I'm like, can you put yourself in the place of Anne Frank, who is going through puberty, falling in love with a boy, living with 3 other families for years. She didn't have Netflix or takeout either, or wine. So we're doing okay.
Doing pretty well. Yes, it puts it
on. Still is not it's not good, but all right. Lois, who was the one I mentioned earlier, can't wait to read this one. Marantha Rowe was great. Question: how will the marketing plan for your new book be affected by the pandemic? And best of luck with everything.
Yes, quite a lot. It has been affected quite a lot. Yeah. We were just starting to schedule in-person events back in the spring. We had this lovely event. We had a couple of other events on the calendar. I had been asked to come to a couple of different book festivals across the country. And of course, none of that is happening now. The events that are still happening are happening virtually, as this one is, instead of in person, which I think is absolutely the right decision. We all have to be careful and protect one another, and that is absolutely the right decision. And, as I mentioned earlier, the virtual events, it's always fun to see friends and family in person and be able to hug them and be with them. But the virtual events have their advantages as well. No question about it. I have seen so many loved ones sign in here today who, live in Boston or California or Chicago. I wouldn't have gotten to see them today anyway. They wouldn't have been able to celebrate with us and join with us. So I just try to look on the bright side and be thankful that we are able to have these virtual events. I'm not great with technology. I'm shocked that this is even, and I don't know where to look. So I'm like looking all around. I don't know whether to look at Sue or to look. Just
nothing. No.
Just forgive my awkwardness, right? So I really am so thankful that we're able to be chatting here today and have people submit questions or comments, and it's almost like we're all together.
It is, and we will be again someday. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Susan Bernhard. Hi, Heather. You mentioned that the new novel will be set in present day, but pre-COVID. Wondering if you thought about or talked about with other writers about how this global pandemic will affect fiction going forward. And I do have to mention, I remember reading after 9/11, and maybe 5 or 6 years is when people actually started to talk about it, because there were so many books that had 9/11 as part of it, not the whole subject. But I think it's going to be a little while to have us wrap our heads around this. Don't you think? Yeah.
I think you're right. I think and by the way, Susan's book, Winterloom, if you all don't know it, is phenomenal. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And thank you, Susan, for being with us. And she has read The Good Luck Stone and said lovely things about it, which I appreciate also. I do think it will take us a while to process it and to figure out how, and of course, as we sit here today, we don't even know how much longer this is going to go, and what it all looks like. What do things look like a year from now? We don't even know. I think it will be definitely interesting to see, how people incorporate that into stories and how it changes us as a society or doesn't, and how that all works itself out. Yeah,
it will be interesting. And Margot Littell, did I say that right? I hope. Did anything surprise you while you were writing or revising this book? Did a character veer in an unexpected direction? I love that question because I've had authors tell me, this, I didn't even know, but you're writing it. And they're like, no, I had to write it this way. Did that happen to you?
It did. So Margot's new book, The Distance from 4 Points, is out, just came out. And she is just an amazingly talented author. And I'm convinced Margot and I are going to be able to meet each other in person one day, because we're social media friends and we chat and we have very similar tastes in books. So I really hope we can make that happen one day. What was the question? Oh yeah. Yes, it changed mainly in that for the longest time I had the friends in the Philippines, the nurses. I had 2 friends. And, I had one who was rescued and one who stayed behind. And not to give any spoilers away, but some other things that I wanted to happen in the story, I couldn't figure out how to make it work well with there only being 2 friends. And so I remember I was sitting at like a Supercuts or something, getting Davis's haircut. And I was, as one does, although I'm cutting his hair myself these days. I was just telling Gina about that. Well, you saw him earlier today. How did his hair look?
Good. Yeah. I have a video. My husband's going to hate me for this, but he's hanging his head upside down, shaving his head in the kitchen. It's like, ooh, it doesn't look bad though. It came out good.
Well, Dave's hair looks good too. So we're all good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I'm sending in Supercuts or Great Clips or wherever it was, and I'm writing in my little notebook, and I realize, there are 3 friends, and it just broke the whole story open in terms of how I wanted all the things to happen after the war. Yeah, and so that was a big moment, in the drafting, just in figuring that out. I'm not very good at planning out the story in advance or about plotting. So I get to these moments where I'm really stuck and I'm like, well, man, where do I go from here? How do I fix that problem? So that was a moment where, it wasn't necessarily a character taking off in a direction I hadn't anticipated. It was more like there's a whole new character I didn't know was there.
That one. I love that. And I'm glad you listened too. Anne Croteau?
Hi, Anne Croteau, yes.
Did significant themes, characters, or ideas for your new book and process come from working through The Good Luck Stone?
Oh, good question. Somewhat, yes. So the world of art and painting and so on plays a little bit of a role in The Good Luck Stone, in the sense that Audrey Thorpe, the main character, is very into art history and art, and she, in fact, the book opens at an art museum in Savannah. And she's on the board, of course, and all that. I originally thought there would be more art in the book, more visual art. I mean, not literally on the pages, but, I thought it would play a bigger part in the story. And so it didn't turn out to. There are some references and, we took some references out, we put others back in, because it is of interest to Audrey for sure. But anyway, I have always wanted to have a main character who is really an artist themselves, or really in the art world or consumed with art. So the new book that I'm working on, I believe, will have a little bit more of that. So since I didn't end up doing that focus in the Good Luck Stone, I think that that's going to be art, and painting will be more of a focus in the new story.
Nice. Well, the lovely and wonderful Amy Willoughby Burrell is here, and she's coming out with a new book too. I love her book, The Lemonade Years. And in fact, you were paired off with her at our literary festival 2 years ago. And that's how you met. She's also from the Western North Carolina. She says, "Congratulations, Heather. I'm so happy for you. In talking about rewrites and making changes, did you have to cut anything from the story that you miss? And if and when that happens, do those things, people, events, what have you ever appeared in other stories, will appear in other stories, or do you make your peace with it and move on?"
Oh, yeah, this is a fun topic, isn't it? And you're right. I know. You're right. You paired Amy and me together at the movable feast event. That's not what you call it.
Yeah, it's a movable feast. So you go around to 4 different tables, and
okay, so you did call it that. Yeah. And I'm so glad you did that, because that was one evening, and we have been friends ever since. So look what you did. It's amazing.
There's a lot of people that did that, so it's great.
Yeah, you're a little matchmaker.
I try.
Amy has helped me this summer when I was trying to decide kind of which project to move forward with, and I was kind of getting stuck. And I would email Amy sometimes these long rambling emails, and she was just a gem to wade through that mess and email me back and help me find my way. To answer Amy's question, I draft short generally, so I don't often have parts that have to be cut. I'm more of a writer who an editor or agent will say, "I need more. I need you to add, flesh this out, or expand the scene, or put more explanation in here about this character motivation," and that sort of thing. So, definitely I have to cut lines or word, little phrases that I think, oh, that was kind of a pretty little phrase, and it's a shame that it just doesn't fit the story. I have to cut it. But in terms of big chunks of the manuscript, big chapters, I guess there's a little bit, so we haven't talked a ton about Laurel, but there's a character in this book who is a caretaker for Audrey Thorpe. So she comes in and helps Audrey around the house and ends up becoming very close to her. And my agent pointed out in the first draft I sent her that I had a lot of chapters where Laurel is just kind of at her house doing stuff with her son or talking to her husband, and maybe Audrey's name comes up or something. There were too many chapters like that. I think Carly, my agent, said, "I'm tired of seeing Laurel just going around her house."
But when you don't notice,
that's fair. That was a fair point. So I guess looking back, I did have to cut several chapters of Laurel, vacuuming and wandering around her house, and that was not super exciting.
Yeah, but you're right what you know. So.
But yeah, otherwise, I'm often having in the rewrite stage to add things, to add chapters or scenes, which I'm always happy to do. Yeah.
All right, we'll have time for 2 more questions. Hi, Heather. This is from Jenny Lynn, your college roommate, and she has some stories in here about you in college. No, I'm kidding.
I was actually kind of boring in college. I'm just going to be honest. Jenny will back me up on that. We were studying. Truly. I'm actually not joking.
So much fun to join you today. Congratulations. You haven't aged a day since college because you did so much research. What sources did you turn to, and how did you organize it all? That's got to be hard, like a moving puzzle, really.
Yes, definitely. I have aged quite a lot, so that was a very, generous thing to say. But in terms of the research, I checked out a lot of books from the library. I bought a lot of books. When it came to the book research, I would always read the book all the way through, or let's say once I knew that the Philippines was my setting, if I had a book that also talked about Burma or a different part of the world, then I might skip those chapters if I didn't need those. But I would read the book all the way through, and then I would go back and flag parts that I thought I might want to use. So little details about here's what the nurses were eating, or here's what their sleeping quarters looked like, or that sort of thing. What was challenging for me is when I found contradictory information and I didn't know what to rely on, right? And so in those situations, I try to go to a primary source. There are some primary sources available, some nurses who served, if not in this particular area of the world, in a close by area, and kept journals or sent letters home that are now available and that sort of thing. So yeah, I tried to sift through the information that way, and I kept a document on my computer and a running list on my little spiral notebook about, again, the medical procedures that they were doing, what they were wearing, what food they were eating. And of course, the nurses themselves move around as the war comes and they have to, shift and go deeper into the jungle and Bataan and, then they come back, they're on the move. So that meant, of course, I had to research each place that they go. When they arrive to Manila, which of course, is a bustling city. So it's different than some of the other settings in the Philippines where they ended up. But yeah, so I would have little sections and little flags and all the research about, this relates to what was going on with the military movements at the time. What was General MacArthur doing then, or, that sort of thing. And then as I drafted, when I got to a part where I thought, oh, would they have taken a train to this place, or would they have taken a Jeep or a bus or, a ship, or, how would they have gotten there? What would the route have looked like? Then I would go back to those notes and flip back to my little colored tabs and Post-it notes. I'm a big Post-it note user, and try to pull the details from there to try to get those little details.
So no cell phones, huh?
Right.
All right. Last question. This person didn't leave their name. It says, hi. First, I just wanted on record that Heather is being way too honest about her process and what she's pulled off with this book. The back and forth in time is a deft trick, as she put it in a ton of behind the scenes work on it. Second, you've touched on it some, but I wonder if you could talk more about storytelling and how you go about building a plot. Sorry. Post or plot.
I don't know how to build a post. No. I'm not sure I know how to build a plot either, to be honest with you. For me, it's a lot of trial and error, and it's writing myself. I know I should be better about outlining and planning it out, and there are a lot of writers who are really good at doing that. I'm just not that great at it, honestly. And maybe it's because of my lawyer life. I have to be so methodical and detail oriented and have every T crossed and I dotted and all that. When it comes to writing, I view it a little bit more as playtime, and I'm experimenting and, just trying different things. And so I do get stuck sometimes, and I get to a point in the story where I think, gosh, where can I go from here? Or I've kind of painted myself into a corner. And I like to ask what if questions as I'm not building the plot in advance, but as I'm going, what if this happened next, right? What if Laurel's mother came to town and was critical of her? Or what if, Laurel shows up at Audrey's house one day and she's disappeared? Or what if Audrey gets this letter from somebody she knew back in the war that she thought she'd never hear from again? And I just kind of play off of those what if questions and try anyway. I don't know that I succeed, but I try anyway to sort of pick the option that seems interesting and entertaining. As a reader, we talked about, I read a lot. That's my favorite hobby. What's the kind of story I want to read about? Do I want to read about the society woman who has a secret that nobody knows? That's kind of the impetus for this one, and just kind of go from there.
Well, that was John Seeley. You know. I am going to ask one more question because this is an interesting one. It says you write amazing short stories and have received recognition for your talent. Do you envision publishing a book of short stories in the future? That I really feel is up and coming, because people have no attention span right now because they can't concentrate on a whole book sometimes, or even a 2-minute ad. So I think that would be a great idea. And you have great short stories.
Well, thank you. I would love to do that one day. I really would. Yeah.
John.
John
Seeley. So someday we'll get that.
Yeah, I think I really would enjoy that. I think that would be fun. I like writing novels and short stories. Somebody asked me once, to pick which I like better, and I said, well, they're just so different. They really are. And sometimes if I'm drafting a novel, I take a break from the novel and go write a short story. It's just a different, process. And obviously, why are you laughing?
That's what I do. And then I wrote notes, and yeah. So we had Paula Williams was talking to me last night, and she's a huge fan of yours. And she was saying, wouldn't it be great if we got people together to do a crowdcast like this, with Amy Burrell and Bren McLean, and just like the same genre, bunch of us authors just on here, because it's hard to do it with a pandemic. But Mary Kay Andrews is doing it with Kristen Woodson Harvey, and they're all getting together every Wednesday night, and they have cocktails and just chit chat. And I think this format is not going to go away.
Yeah. We'll get Gina to join us.
Yes. That was what I was thinking. Yeah. And, just get together with a bunch of girls, strong friendships, and you prove that here with everybody has known you for years and love you. And I think we could do that and do a big crowdcast with everybody and just have fun.
I would love that.
But I think the strong friendships would be a great theme. Mm-hmm. And I do love this format. And we've had a couple authors on that have said, I don't have to leave my house and my kids and my family for 6 weeks. This is perfect, So I do like to be able to hug everybody and have you sign my bathroom wall, but we can do that someday.
Yeah. But this is good too. And I do want to thank you, Sue, and Page 158 for making today possible. I mean, truly, you have just stuck with us from the start and said, we are going to do this one way or another.
Yeah.
And you made it happen. And I'm just so thankful for that. I really am. And come by my house to bring books repeatedly, which is so sweet. She brought my dog a treat this morning. So Blue is
on myself.
What?
He's going to love me.
I know, right? And I'm just I'm so appreciative. And also, I haven't been able to address everybody whose name I have seen pop up on the side, and I feel bad about that. But I do want to thank everybody this is a Saturday afternoon. I know you have other things that you could be doing, and it's just so much fun to have you all here. And I appreciate it so very much. Everybody who has joined us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And no, Greg, it does not have to be a bunch of girls. We're talking friendship. So
Greg can join us.
Yeah. That. But I think we get together as friends and people, and this is a good way to do it. Was there anything that you wanted, like one main thing that you wanted to get out there for people? Is it friendship? Is it, you want that story told, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think at its heart, the Good Luck Stone is about friendship and what we're willing to do for one another, what sacrifices we're willing to make for one another. Yeah, so I think we did a good job of talking about that. And
great job. Yeah.
We're all friends here today. We have all these
Yeah.
friends who are online with each other, and so that's what we do. We adjust when we can't get together in person. We get together this way.
Yeah. So 2 more things. What was the theme song running through your head? Did you have like jazz music or swing?
I don't really know much about music. I'm not a very good music source, honestly. I'm kind of nerdy. I listen to classical music in the car,
But that's from the time period too. So
that's true. That's a good point. Yes.
So there it is.
So Audrey, mentions in the first chapter Glenn Miller, and stuff. So I did look that up just to make sure those references seemed appropriate for what she was remembering.
Well, I want to thank everybody. There's been so many comments on the side here, so many good friends. If everybody can email me, Sue at page 158 books, I really do want to put together an author event that is like this and just talk about life. So I think that'll be really fun. My email is sue at page158books.com, or you can just email the store at info@page158books.com. There's a button there, buy the book. I will mail it to you with a little something in there. Maybe Heather will kiss put some lips up and kiss each book. I don't know. We'll do something. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't thank you enough for coming and supporting Heather, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
Everybody.
Group hugs.